Madhgalyayana. Madhgalyayana is another name, big name, in the Buddhist Sangha. He was also in the Buddhist inner circle and one of his closest apprentices. Becoming the apprentice of the Enlightened One was probably something like giving up your studies at a highly respected art school to become the apprentice of a great sculptor or artist. Certainly, many of the great arhats dedicated their entire lives to the Enlightened One, whom they followed like a shadow.
If you were to bump up into Madhgayana, you would probably mistake him for the Buddha himself. It was as if he had been cast from the same mold. In sutras, Madhgayana and Shariputra appear together more often than not. And temple murals usually place Shariputra on Buddha's right and Madhgayana on his left. Amongst many of the other great qualities, Madhgayana was well known and a powerful miracle worker. It was quite natural then for Buddha to turn to Madhyayana and Shariputra after Shariputra had declined to visit Vimalakirti on his behalf. Would Madhyayani accept the commission?
And this is interesting to me that about the miracle worker, because Buddha wasn't in favor, even though all the people then knew how to do miracles, but Buddha wasn't a fan of that. So I'm curious about that.
Well, it's also really interesting to say that this writer speaks about becoming an apprentice, not a disciple, not somebody that just follows, but somebody who's watching someone and learning their way of doing something so they can carry that forward. I thought that was really interesting too.
But what they're carrying forward is not being an individual like Shariputra, but being a mirror, a clone.
I don't know.
He said you couldn't tell the difference if you looked at this guy. You might think you're looking at Buddha.
If you bumped into him, right?
Yeah. Oh, am I next?
Yeah.
No, my lord. Is that where we are? Replied Madhgayana, with the same gesture, devotion, and respect that Shariputra had offered. Another astonishing response, one that must have been both bewildered and fascinated the others. Oh, and one that another astonishing response, and one that must have both bewildered and fascinated the other disciples. Who was this man, Lijavi Vimalakirti, and why were two such accomplished arhats, the mightiest of all the Buddhist disciples, doing the utmost to avoid him?
I don't think I'm quite up to it, Magdalabaya said. He then went on to describe what had happened the last time he and Vimalakirti met. Magdalena was teaching a large gathering of lay people when quite suddenly the Vimalakirti appeared before him as if out of nowhere. Vanya said, Vimalakirti, you shouldn't teach the Dharma like that. Imagine this happening today. Imagine a famous contemporary Buddhist teacher being interrupted by a shining little man with long black hair, a diamond encrusted gold wristwatch, and a very fat, very expensive cigar clutched between his whiter than white teeth. Imagine the look on the teacher's face when the man said, "You shouldn't teach the Dharma like that." How will the teachers, synchrophonic students react? How dare he tell our perfect master how to teach, perhaps?
Whatever the reason, Vimalakirti ignored them all and went on to deconstruct its meticulous detail, what is really meant by teach the Dharma. As there is no soul, no sentient being, no self, no birth, no death, no person, no past, no future, no words, no phrase, no color, no shape, nothing to be abandoned and nothing to adopt, what is there to teach? So-called teaching is nothing more than a fabrication, as is so-called listening. Where there is fabrication, not one syllable of Dharma can be uttered. There is no such thing as, quote, hearing the Dharma or expounding the Dharma, because there's only fabrication. Fabrication is all there is. It's a bit like a magician who creates two people. He makes one the expounder and the other the listener, but neither the expounder nor the listener and contemplation ever but neither expounding nor listening and contemplation ever happen.
This is really beautiful for me because I recently spent some time with a high school classmate who's been a psychiatrist for 50 plus years. And I knew he was old school. So I said, "Oh, you must do a lot of talking." And he said, "No, never. I'm just a listener." And just like this, I just love that.
And today I was listening to a little podcast on this sutra, and they give a beautiful example similar to this, where, but go back, I don't know how to say the name without looking at it, Kim. Vimalakirti was, in his beyond enlightenment, was similar to an audience of children watching a magic show. And that magic show is all delusion. That's one level of delusion. And the next, a little removed level of delusion, is the magician. He knows what he's doing is delusion, but he's engaged in the delusion of the audience and his surroundings. But then, like Vimalakirti, there are those who are beyond the joy of that tremendous enlightenment, which is they don't know anything. For them, none of that exists. They're not children, they're not the magician, they are not connected with any of those delusions. I thought that was a lovely way to explain where in his practice Vimalakirti was.
Well, and it's interesting to me too to think about what Dogen talks about, that how this was prior to Dogen, in my understanding. That Dogen came after this, and Dogen's kind of radical idea about Zen. And this is not particularly about Zen. I guess I need to think about that too. This is about Buddhism. But that they are the same thing. The illusion and the reality are not separate. So somebody standing up and saying, "You're doing this wrong because it's all an illusion," is kind of missing the point from Dogen's point of view. I think it's you, Emily. Or no, it's me again. No. We missed you. You didn't talk, did you?
No,
No.
but I can talk next time.
Okay, I'll start at the beginning again. Vimalakirti's statements are strikingly perceptive. Unfortunately, though, not only do petty-minded people like us fail to understand his words, we are irritated by everything he says. What is he talking about? How can a holy teaching be a mere fabrication? And what is wrong with teaching people to refrain from killing, stealing, and lying? People need to hear this teaching. So surely this is what should be taught. It's the kind of teaching that not only helps us help ourselves, it helps us help others. As for karma and reincarnation, how can they be fabrication? Don't they form one of the pillars of Buddha Dharma, the essence of a spiritual path?
I have a message for the so-called Buddhists, especially those from Britain, who take pride in advertising themselves as pioneers of the notion that there can be Buddhism without beliefs and Buddhism beyond reincarnation. You are 2,500 years too late. The credit for these ideas lies solely with this rude, hedonistic, philanthropic businessman from Vasali.
I may be assuming too much here, but isn't Vimalakirti's point that as long as thinking and illusion are considered to be real, there will also be delusion, and that as long as there is delusion, there will be a path or method to awaken us from that delusion. But just as illusion is not real, neither is the path that liberates us from illusion. How can it be? If the snake you dreamt about last night was an illusion, how could the stick you used to drive the snake away be real? If the stick were real, then the snake would also have to be real. So Vimalakirti seems to be saying that just as everything is an illusion, the path that liberates you from delusion is also an illusion. In this case, the path is the teaching. Therefore, to teach, hear, understand, and realize are all illusions.
Kim.
You might ask,
Cassie. Yeah, what's up, Cassie?
I was going to ask, was there something in the Diamond Sutra that basically kind of said, if you talk about it, then you're not doing it anymore? Like, I'm trying to remember that. Maybe I may be way off base. I'm just feel like I
don't
remember
remember.
something in there.
Yeah,
No,
I'm
that's
not
it.
I'm not
Okay.
familiar with the Diamond Sutra, but that's certainly a common Zen idea that it's beyond words and letters, or, once you say one word, you raise up the entire world, the dusty world, or, yeah, so I think that's a big Zen idea.
Thanks.
who's reading now?
You are.
Yeah.
Okay. You might ask, why then do we teach? We teach out of compassion for those who think illusion is real and yet have to realize that it isn't. And we teach for those with strong habits. Compassion compels us to apply every single skillful method available in our effort to help them, which means we must pretend to teach. That's fun. By teaching, we can offer the person dreaming about a snake the choice of many kinds of stick to drive it away with. And by doing so, we serve the Buddha Dharma. Our sole reason for teaching can only ever be the supreme objective of unconditional compassion. And if, out of compassion, we apply the skillful method of teaching, the light of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha will continue to shine.
There are people in the West today who love to create a pick and mix kind of spiritual path for themselves. They do not hesitate to discard the branches of the traditional tree of Buddhist teachings that they cannot understand. Reincarnation, for example, which they dismiss as being little more than a cultural Indian habit, an illusion. Yet they continue to promote profit from and cling desperately to Buddhism's other traditional branches like mindfulness, meditation, morality, and ethics.
This is really interesting to me. I mean, he definitely has an axe to grind.
Say that
Do you
again.
mean Vimalakirti?
No, the writer.
Oh, okay. Go on, Elda. Sorry.
Back in the mangrove grove, Madhgalyayana wound up his story by saying that after his encounter with Vimalakirti, he had lost all confidence. But please bear in mind that out of their great compassion for people like me, Vimalakirti and Madhgalyayana almost certainly staged this encounter. Wow. Wow.
Donna has joined us, so we'll slot her in between Cassie and Emily. Okay. Kasyapa. Next, Buddha turned to one of the greatest disciples, his greatest disciples, Kasyapa, the monk whom Buddha himself appointed to be his regent. It was Kasyapa who convened the first assembly of the Sangha, where the disciples began the process of compiling all Buddha's teaching for the benefit of future generations, people like us. And he too had a very good reason for refusing to visit Vimalakirti.
One morning, as he set out to beg for food, Kasyapa thought to himself, today I will beg from the poor because the poor need to accumulate merit. As he went from door to door to the poorest neighborhood in Vasali, Vimalakirti suddenly appeared before him as if out of nowhere.
That's you, Donna.
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay.
So you're at What Are You Doing?
What are you doing? Kiaspa asked Vimalakirti. Why are you begging from the poor? That's such a big mistake. Why are you discriminating between rich and poor? You shouldn't do that. When you beg, it should be with an attitude of equanimity and compassion for all sentient beings.
With these words, Vimalakirti pulls the rug out from under everyone's feet. We are so contaminated with political correctness that we pick and choose the objects of our compassion. Not only are our minds dualistic, so is our compassion. Should we only feel compassion for a poor, sick, destitute orphan or stray dogs? Are we really being compassionate when we go out of our way to save a rabid dog's life, but feel smugly satisfied when that very dog bites Donald Rumsfeld? Or if we help an orphan from Bangladesh, rather... Whoa, cool.
Oh my God.
Rather than a billionaire like Donald Trump, Our hearts go out to the homeless in bitter weather, but we remain entirely unmoved by a tweet about Bill Gates being served a tough steak for dinner. What Vimalakirti seems to be saying to Kasyapa is that everyone, the rich and the poor, the famous and the insignificant, should all be equal objects of our compassion.
Is that me?
Yes.
One of the most important remarks Vimalakirti makes in this section is that Kashyapa should beg alms from the short-sighted, deluded beings who see a part and imagine it to be the whole. It's a statement that never fails to impress me. Isn't he talking about all of us? We look at ourselves, yet we don't see that we are fragmented, transitory collections of bits and bobs that are subject to time, space, name, decay, and interpretation. We don't see the different pieces, we just see a whole. For example, I would argue that I am a man, but if I were dismantled and reduced to a pile of atoms, not even I could point to one of those atoms and call it a man. Yet I am convinced that I have a gender, that I am a man. It's an idea I'm stuck with, and surely someone as stuck as me should also have the opportunity to accumulate merit.
But remember, Vimalakirti was a layperson. If a layperson can talk like this, said Kasyapa to Buddha, if a layperson can be this accomplished, how can we not believe that the enlightenment of all sentient beings is possible?
That was when I stopped giving the teachings that only led to self-liberation, said Kasyapa, which must mean that from then on, he only taught the path that leads all sentient beings to liberation. By the time Vimalakirti had finished talking, said Kasyapa, he had well and truly crushed my pride. I can't bear the thought of seeing him again.
This is so interesting because it really paints all the disciples and the arhats as these very proud, terrified, ashamed beings. And that's not at all how I think about them. But in this sutra, that's what they are. Subhuti. Another character who appears in this sutta is Subhuti. Many of us already know him because he pops up in quite a number of other sutras. I have a feeling he was a very curious person and single-minded in his pursuit of knowledge and wisdom. After all, it was Subhuti's conversation with the Buddha that became the Vajrachedika Sutra. Even so, when Buddha asked Subhuti if he would visit Basali, he refused because he too had had an unsettling encounter with Vimalakirti.
Contrary to present-day prejudices about beggars, in ancient India and much of Asia, begging for alms as a monk was a noble way of life, a right way to live. The Tathagata himself begged for food, and there are many beautiful stories about the people he met as he begged and how he helped them, often changing the entire course of their lives.
On one occasion, Tathagata insisted on visiting the ramshackle dwelling of a destitute woman who herself did not have a single grain of rice to eat. When a Buddha approached her, holding out his begging bowl, as she had no food, she offered to darn a small hole she had noticed in his robes. At that moment, according to the Sutras, the earth shook. A rainbow filled in the sky, and Sariputra, who was attending the Buddha that day, smiled an unusually radiant smile. Later, when his fellow monks asked Sariputra what had so delighted him, he said, "In Tushapta, heaven at this very moment, the gods are building a palace for that old woman. She will go there the moment she leaves this earth."
Wow.
Which makes the story of Subhuti's encounter with the Lukavi Vimalakirti all the more surprising. The day Subhuti visited Vimalakirti's house to beg for alms, a great deal of delicious food had already been prepared especially for him. All Subhuti had to do was wait patiently at the kitchen door, while Vimalakirti personally filled his bowl. As Vimalakirti piled on one last spoonful, he said, "Now, Subhuti, you should only accept this offering if you have truly understood that all phenomena, samsara and nirvana, possessions and enlightened qualities, are equal." Vimalakirti was so cheeky. "You should only accept this offering," he continued, "if you haven't abandoned desire, anger, and ignorance, yet remain unstained by them." And that wasn't all. "You should only accept this offering if you are not a victim of transitory phenomena. If you have not abandoned craving, yet remain unstained by it. If you have never heard of the Four Noble Truths, yet never violated them. And if you have never seen the Buddha, never heard the Dharma, and never venerated the Sangha," and so on. Instantly, Subhuti felt extremely depressed, so depressed that all 10 directions went pitch black and his begging bowl slipped through his fingers to the ground. He tried to run away, but Vimalakirti stopped him.
Subhuti, don't be afraid. Take the food. I want to ask you a question. Vimalakirti was absolutely relentless. If the Tathagata had said what I just said, and if he had been addressing an illusory being, would that illusory being have been afraid? Of course he wouldn't, because he was an illusion. Don't you see, not only was everything I said an illusion, but I didn't say it to anyone at all. My words are illusory. Therefore, Subhuti, there is no need to be afraid of accepting and eating this food, which is itself an illusion. After that, like Mahalayana, Subhuti lost all confidence. "I can't face that holy being again," he told the Buddha. "Not again. Please don't send me."
Rahula. Rahula was was Buddha's only son, but when asked to visit Vimalakirti on his father's behalf, even Rahula respectfully declined. One day, Vimalakirti was hanging out with a crowd of young men from Lachivia. The young men knew quite a lot about Rahula and were curious to know why he had given up the life of a prince to become a monk. "You are the son of the Buddha," they said, "but you are also a prince. Tell us, why did you give up your royal life and all your riches? Is renouncing all that wealth really such a great thing to do? What is the point?"
Seizing the opportunity to explain the benefits of monastic life, Rahula told him how soothing he found life as a simple monk. Being a monk made him feel at ease, he said, and brought with it a tremendous sense of freedom. What kind of freedom, they asked. He no longer had to lock away his treasures, said Rahula, or make inventories of his household goods, or maintain an extensive property portfolio, and much more.
Suddenly, Vimalakirti appeared before Rahula, as out of nowhere, and prostrated. Rahula, listen to yourself. Listen to what you're saying about the benefits of becoming a monk. You really shouldn't talk like that. Why not? Asked Rahula. Because there is no benefit in renouncing palaces and riches, and there is no benefit in becoming a monk, replied Vimalakirti.
I don't think people like us can ever fully grasp just how shocking that statement must have been, especially as it came from the mouth of an arch hedonist, Vimalakirti, who embodied the very antithesis of renunciation. Not only that, Vimalakirti was addressing Rahula, the only son of the Lord Buddha and the prince of the Shakas. He was no ordinary monk. By renouncing samsaric life in order to follow his father's teachings, Rahula had turned his back on unimaginable wealth and privilege. Regardless of where and when we live, such a sacrifice is worthy of the highest praise and should be emulated.
But if we examine what was going on more closely, it becomes clear that Vimalakirti wasn't criticizing Rahula for being a monk. What he was doing was scrutinizing so-called benefit to work out precisely what it meant, so that he could then dismantle it. To benefit implies that we get or acquire something. The trouble is that having to get anything always causes problems. If something can be got or achieved or accomplished, it must be compounded. It must be a compounded phenomenon. Therefore, to be a true renunciant, we must renounce not only all causes, but also all results, which means we must not only renounce worldly life, but also the benefits of becoming a monk or a nun.
Is it me? A discussion about renunciation almost always involves talking about revulsion and temptation and so on. It's not just Buddhists who value such principles. Many of the world's religions embrace the idea of renunciation and have designed methods for practicing it to suit their tradition. This suggests that the majority of people think temptation and luxury are bad, even diabolical manifestations that they would be better off without. Buddhism includes similar teachings, but they are meant for those whose ability to digest new ideas is weak and who find it easier to chew on the soggier teachings. For example, to help us crush desire, attachment, temptation, and so on, we're told the gold and silver are bad. Monks are taught that to deal with their desire for girls by thinking about the puss and blood and shit that make up a girl's body. And of course, political correctness obliged me to point out that nuns are supposed to think the same about boys.
This is so interesting to me that he, the writer, is doing what he accused other, especially British Buddhists, of doing earlier, where he's saying he doesn't like that part of Buddhism. He's choosing which parts of Buddhism to like, to say he wants to practice. which seems,
Are you saying that the writer is saying that? Or-
yes, I'm saying the writer is saying that. Yeah, I'm sort of analyzing the writing, not what he's saying Vimalakirti is saying, but the writer earlier was saying, oh, those people that want to pick and choose and take bits and bobs, they're so bad and they're not doing it right. And then he comes down and says, well, Buddhism includes these similar teachings, but not for me. Not for me. I'm not going to have to do that because I'm smarter. That's what he seems to be saying.
I didn't get that. I guess I got that he was saying that to exclude is not considering the entire picture. I guess that's what I got from this paragraph. That once we fall into absolutes, we start to lose part of the picture.
Right. I think that to me is the basic idea,
Mm-hmm.
but he seems like he's contradicting himself to me.
Mm.
So, Anne, I read this a slightly different way. I see him in a very cheeky way, which is very funny, sometimes, sort of describing what Vimalakirti espoused. I don't, as we were reading it, I didn't attach these words to the writer himself. The ones I did attach to him was where he talked about the British, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I'm the one who's off, not looking at it clearly.
Yeah, we all see it differently. That's a good thing.
There was this study done on what the true definition of humility is. And for me, it's kind of tracking into this with that. I had pulled up the document because I was just sitting there thinking about it and thinking about it. Kiesebeer broadly defines the term as the ability to see oneself in true perspective and be at peace with it. And that humility isn't about putting ourselves down or putting ourselves up or putting another up or putting another down, that it's that true perspective. And that was kind of mapping onto this for me of the good and the bad of this other stuff, of trying to get to just the center without tipping off of either side.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you. But that isn't the kind of renunciation Vimalakirti is talking about here. His subject is absolute renunciation. If you think something is beautiful and desirable, your desire will bind you to it. And exactly the same thing happens when you think it's ugly and reject it. Both thoughts create the same amount of clinging, and if you cling, you haven't renounced at all. These illustrations are fascinating.
This looks like a boat on the right. I don't know. Maybe not.
Looks like it should be horizontal to me. I kind of see like a boat and a person on the bottom, and either people swimming or flying or.
A boat.
Yeah,
If you look at the skull and the people here.
Yeah.
And the rats in the rat race.
And the train being on the train and the train tracks.
Well, those people have halos there in the middle.
Yeah.
And then there's a pregnant woman next to the,
Oh, you think that?
I think it's a pregnant woman,
Or something.
something else.
Good.
Okay, is it my turn?
No, I think it's
No, I
Whose turn?
I
Oh,
think it's
Nelda.
Nelda.
Oh,
Nelda.
oh, I'm sorry. All right. This is why Vimalakirti made fun of Rahula. If you really want to renounce samsara, he says, you must first know that there's nothing to renounce. It's like winning $1 billion in a dream and immediately giving it all to charity. Is your donation an act of generosity? Yes, it is, but only in the dream. Did you really give $1 billion to charity? No, because neither the $1 billion nor the charity ever existed. This is the level of renunciation that Vimalakirti is talking about.
Ultimately, we accomplish a genuine act of renunciation or penance or austerity when we recognize that what we are renouncing is like a dream or an illusion. Knowing that, we renounce illusory projections. A bodhisattva will only be able to perfect renunciation once she knows the true nature of what she renounces. He will then have established renunciation mind.
In the Mahayana, in the Vimalakirti Sutra, and several sutras like it, everything, even enlightenment, is said to be a dream or an illusion. But Vimalakirti goes even further. He says that if there was something beyond or greater than enlightenment, that too would be a dream or an illusion.
Once again, I can only speculate about what Vimalakirti is really getting at. But it might be that if you have a goal, if your aim is to benefit or to achieve a result or a reward, you lack true renunciation, and therefore your activity is not genuine Dharma practice. That is not to say that being a monk like Rahula was an aimless, fruitless, or meaningless existence. The point here is that aimlessness is the aim. Basically, if you don't realize that the goal of your practice is an illusion, if you think it's real, and if your aspirations and actions in pursuit of that goal are based on a wrong view, whatever you do is not genuine Dharma practice.
In Buddhist teachings, words like result, aim, or perfection often appear and deliberately chosen for people, and are deliberately chosen for people like us who can only chew soggy food and are in love with the idea of a result, a bottom line, and especially productivity.
Ananda. Next comes Ananda, another huge figure in the history of Buddhism. He was the Buddha's cousin and served as his personal attendant for many years. He also accompanied the majority
No,
of Buddha's
compiled.
Thank you. He also compiled the majority of Buddha's teaching, most famously all the sutras that begin, "Thus have I heard," including Vimalakirti Sutra, which he recited from memory at the first Buddhist council. Yet even Ananda was unwilling to visit Vimalakirti.
find it interesting that they were all sort of intimidated by him, and yet they didn't feel that way toward the Buddha. And maybe it was just a matter of their different styles. I don't know, but I just find that interesting.
Or that the Buddha didn't suddenly appear out of nowhere,
Out of nowhere.
usually.
Right, and tell them they were doing the wrong thing.
Wrong.
Exactly, yeah, you know. You don't know when somebody's gonna come tap you, just appear and tap you on the shoulder. That
Or whack you
go
with a
along
stick.
with.
One day, as the Buddha wasn't feeling very well, his doctors recommended that he drink some milk. Ananda hurried to the home of a Brahmin family who he knew would be more than happy to make such an offering. And as he waited by the kitchen door for his jug to be filled, Vimalakirti suddenly appeared before him as if out of nowhere. Ananda, said Vimalakirti, what are you doing here? Buddha is ill. It's not serious, but his doctors say we should offer him some milk. So I came here to get some. I'll stop there.
What are you saying? You can't say that, exclaimed Vimalakirti aghast. In a fit of theatrical panic, and again I have a feeling this encounter might have been staged, Vimalakirti dragged Ananda into a shadowy corner of the courtyard. His eyes darted right and left like a hunted animal. Was anyone close enough to see or overhear them? Ananda, please lower your voice, hissed Vimalakirti, as he grabbed Ananda's robes and leant uncomfortably close to his ear. You can never, ever say such things. By now his eyes were bulging. Buddha is like a Vajra. How could he ever fall ill? Buddha has crushed all non-virtue. How could he ever get sick? You'd better get out of here right now. Go, be quick, be quiet. Don't tell anyone what you were doing.
Imagine how baffled Ananda must have been as he stood open-mouthed watching Vimalakirti play out this scene. Don't you see, Ananda, how devastating this scandal could be? If it got out, you'd be utterly disgraced. Glancing fearfully into the sky, Vimalakirti flinched as if he had just realized something terrible. Ah, the gods are clairvoyant. You must know that, don't you? They already know what you were thinking. If the great bodhisattvas get to hear about it, you'll never be able to show your face here again. Vimalakirti pushed Ananda deeper into shadow, as if he needed hiding. And what about the followers of all the other religions? If they hear what you just said, we're all done for. Don't you see? They'll say that if the Buddha can't even cure himself of a trivial illness, how could he possibly live up to his aspiration of enlightening all sentient beings? Ananda, you must leave this place. Go and make sure no one sees you.
Oh, I like that.
By now, of course, Vimalakirti was really hamming it up, but he also had a point. The nature of Buddha is absent from the concepts of emotion, time, and compounded phenomena. Or, to put it another way, the absolute truth that is Buddha, which is not conceptual, cannot be expressed in words, and is beyond the constructs we label as emotion, time, and compounded phenomena. It was therefore impossible for the Buddha either to fall ill or to get well again.
Kim?
Once Vimalakirti had pointed this out, Ananda realized it was true. His embarrassment hit like lightning and was so excruciatingly painful that he immediately turned to flee the courtyard, but was stopped in his tracks by a mysterious voice that boomed from the sky.
When the Tathagata appeared on this earth to tame degenerate beings, he took the form of Prince Siddhartha, son of Siddhadana and Mayavya, to give beings the opportunity to help him. He sometimes look pale, hungry, or thirsty, and by helping him, sentient beings will accumulate merit. So there is no need to be embarrassed, Amanda. Take the milk and offer it to the Buddha. But, said Anamanda to Buddha as he humbly wrapped up his story, I daren't approach Vimalakirti again.
So we've all had our ice cream or writing or whatever. Is anyone like to go first to share with everyone else what's going on?
Melissa, you're talking, but you're a little bit muted.
I was all the way muted. So sorry. I said, I don't mind going first. But I'm not really sure exactly where it all led to. Let's see. This idea of someone appearing out of nowhere and admonishing someone else, and then the admonished one never wanting to be in the presence of the admonisher again, is somewhat fascinating. I wonder if all of these people feel that they can't trust themselves to do or be what V wants them to be, and so do not want to be in his presence, only to be told more of their shortcomings and misbeliefs. I also wonder why, if they felt strongly about what they were doing, why did they not stand up to V? Even when Ananda heard the voice saying it was all right to do what he was doing, to take the milk to Buddha, he didn't really believe that. Was it somehow more important to listen to the person that appeared than a disembodied voice? And if so, why? And in the way the stories were told, none of them went back to the Buddha and explained what happened and asked the Buddha for advice or wisdom. Were they embarrassed? That seems to go against the teachings of Buddha. Were they deep down venerating V more than Buddha? Again, why? Were they so engaged in trying to learn what they might not understand that they had stopped thinking about what happened as it happened? Were they afraid of what the Buddha might say or have them do? Did they not want to put in the work that the Buddha would surely have given them to understand what happened?
Mm.
I'll go next because mine's just a PowerPoint. It's kind of how I think. So my body felt the energy of a writing that was in such a lovely way playful. It was so playful to me. And yeah, this discourse in writing just felt so fun. And I know that my energy in my practice is sometimes all too serious. I can feel the tightness in my body and not an ease, not a flow, not a gentleness with making mistakes. And then the next one was, whew, that's what I wrote, WHEW. Infinite layers of delusion, an endless onion to peel away compassion. And then next one, no path but compassion. But even what we see as compassion can sometimes be delusion, like with Ananda begging from the poor because they too need merit. But guess what? Even merit is a delusion. So I just, and then the last thing I wrote was among the biggest obstacles to clarity are shame and fear. And that's what I heard in all of these followers of Buddha.
Mm,
And I felt nothing but compassion for them. So that was me.
mm. Yeah, Cassie.
Vimalakirti and the inquiry chair. How many times will I not approach it when I feel my own practice edges? How many times will I see the fear in the faces of those who do not come forward? For even the apprentices sitting directly beside the Buddha have this feeling too. Am I willing to face a practice edge? Born through body, speech, and mind, I now fully avow. But what emerges is what is born through unconditional compassion, even if it looks like scolding. If it is really born from unconditional compassion, it turns the Dharma wheel, unsticks it from the soggy mud.
Mm. Mm.
Um, I wrote about ice cream.
Tell us
I
about
would,
it.
I wrote that I would love to renounce ice cream, but eating it reminds me of how much work I still have to do, caught in the illusion of frozen, creamy goodness. I turn a corner to consider it all. The calf yanked away from mother's side so that a farmer's hands could tug 1/2 cup of milk that creates a scoop of ice cream. As I let the ice cream dissolve on my tongue, I think about how much wind pushed a turbine to generate the electricity needed to freeze the milk and cream. And I think about the men who keep the wind turbines running in remote West Texas, how they spend their days and where do they sleep at night. And I think about the hands that picked vanilla beans and crushed it into extract and how long it took for calluses to form on those fingers. I think about underground deposits of salt and the men who picked at rocks to crush them, and the acres of sugarcane, the machete that swings carefully at a plant, the men who learned painfully how to avoid the slices from the leaves, the time it takes to dry the syrup and pack it up and ship it out. All this I consider in wonder of how we've designed things to come together so perfectly for seconds of enjoyment. I feel shame at how many scoops of ice cream have contributed to my ever-growing envy, and for being a piece of the puzzle that rips the calf from mother. I'm glad I'm not the calf or that mother, and yet I'm glad to taste the ice cream. I am horribly and wonderfully imperfect. It's all true, it's all wrong, and I think maybe it's time to take a very long break from eating ice cream.
Oh, Emily, thank you.
Well, I did a little drawing. It's a lot of no's. I could read it, but it would be like 20 no's, 30 no's. What was this great man who was so mean to all the greats? Did he do it out of compassion? He said no to everyone, pointing out their faults. Why are we reading about such a meaning? Was he really enlightened? I like how Vimalakirti would magically appear from nowhere. He was obviously superhuman. Oh, yeah. There he is. He's turning both ways.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, the idea of renunciation and merit. And I'm reminded of the story about Bodhidharma and the king asking him what merit for all these things I've created in the monasteries and the nunneries and the temples. And I'm saying no merit. And how that's kind of a koan. No merit. What does that mean? Yeah.
One teacher said to me, renunciation is the most important part of Buddhism. But it's different than being an ascetic. That's not renunciation. So it's a real subtle concept because it's unique to Buddhism. What renunciation is in Buddhism as opposed to what it is in other things.
And is renunciation in that kind of way really talking about attachment to those things?
Yes, craving. Well, no, ending craving, I think. Maybe renunciation to having preferences. That's how I get it.
The clinging, I think what the writer was talking about was the clinging to one or the other, renouncing the clinging, renouncing the idea that there is an aim, there's a way to achieve the aim. And it makes me think of, I can't remember which poem it is in our chant book about effort without desire.
But it's not excluding joy, which we've been talking about, and Jess has been talking about a lot in the Dharma talks.
I might see it a little differently than the person I don't feel like I have to renounce my preferences. We all have preferences. I just have to renounce my attachment to them. I don't have to do anything, actually.
Yeah, according to this, it's all an illusion. And so what's the point? That's a good question. This Tibetan guy or Vimalakirti and Albert Camus are all asking, what's the point?
It's a lifelong, well, millions and millions of year question, isn't it? What's it all for? What's it all about? What am I supposed to do with it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm going to read a poem real quick. That's not my poem, but it's a poem that I recently came upon that I think speaks to this. I like it so much. I think it speaks to everything right now. Let's see. The name of the poem is The Maples, and it's by Marie Howe. I asked the stand of maples behind the house, how should I live my life? And they said, shh, shh. How should I live, I ask, and the leaves seemed to ripple and gleam. A bird called from a branch in its own tongue, and from a branch across the yard, another bird answered. A squirrel scrambled up a trunk and then along the length of a branch. Stand still, I thought. See how long you can bear that. Try to stand still, if only for a few moments, drinking light, breathing. Yeah, it's a very nice poem. Yeah, Marie Howe was just given the Pulitzer Prize. Yeah, and that's from her most recent book. So it's time to say goodnight.
And see you all in 2 weeks.
That's right, 2 weeks. Right. have a nice break.
Yeah,
Pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. Good
Thank
night.
you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, Ed.
I know.
We're thinking of you, Ed.
Yeah, get that surgery soon.
It's
Thank you
coming.
for being here anyway. Just your presence makes a difference. It really does.
Yes.
Well, thank you. You were saved me babbling on and on about illusions and renunciations tonight. But
We would have
yeah,
enjoyed it.
well, this was a fun one, although I'm not clinging to fun.
This is very nourishing for me.
Me too.
Nelda and I were talking
Yeah.
about nourishing today.
I agree. This is very nourishing, and I like how it just kind of puts a swizzle stick in the whole thing and gives it a good stir.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good description.
Yeah, one of these days I'm gonna get over myself.
Yeah, but as soon as you do that, you realize that yourself is an illusion.
Right. So,
So,
Oh,
thank you all for
bye-bye,
your
guys. Thank you.
night.
I, so, Mr. Mosley. Oh, not just us yet.
Donna, are you there? Can I?
Hmm. There you go.
I removed her.
Oh. It's good to be.
You don't have to talk. Ed, you're one of my favorite people in the world.
Oh, well, right back at you, Kim.
And my desire, and also Council 5 has been one of the worst experiences of my life. And
Well,
also, I think this has got to be Todd's deal now.
well, and that's what I wanted to I just wanted to check in and make sure you were okay, because this
I'm
thing's-
okay. I'm okay. I just have to, in terms of things being nourishing, this isn't nourishing.
it's spiraling.
And I can't take the control anymore.
Well, that means you have a sense of discernment.
I mean, it's not just this going on, but there's other things going on in terms of the whole way we're doing the electronics, the thing, and people have lots of ideas, and rather than being the one to knock them down, I'm saying, okay, you give it a try. I've given it 5 years. Because I don't want to be the naysayer,
No.
and also, I didn't go today, and then someone said, well, do you have a plunger because the toilet stopped up? And I went there, and the back door wasn't locked, and the water was on the floor in the toilet, and I had to order a part, so it's been kind of a day. And I've ordered the part. It comes tomorrow. I'll put it in the toilet, and hopefully it will.
Well, I figured there was a lot more going on than just
Yeah.
the monitor emails. And yeah, I know it's hard.
Yeah, so we have a
sometimes.
problem Sunday, where we need a monitor. We need someone to do orientation. I really needed this list, and if I'm not going to be the one emailing people, someone else needs to email people. But this thing of the repair is just, I think we made a mistake from the beginning with the embodiment thing of calling it a repair rather than having a discussion about embodiment.
Well, damn, I can't talk.
I'm sorry, it's okay.
No. No, I had to take myself off video tonight because I was throwing up several times.
Oh no, Ed.
This thing is crazy. You just said something which I really kind of like and resonate with. If this, and I understand the value of right use of power, but sometimes structures can get you more bound up than free you. And it would be great if we could just have a discussion about what's going on. Because repair, I don't know, sometimes repair works, sometimes it just gives people a chance to get deeper into whatever.
Well, it implies in what I don't like about it is it implies that someone did the wrong thing, as opposed to it would be like, well, Ed, you got to repair that photo because it wasn't the way I saw it.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm going
And that doesn't honor. Let's approach this with curiosity and see what the other person was up to, rather than pointing it back to yourself and how I was injured by whatever you did. I suspect there's more subtlety and in really what this concept is about, but it hasn't worked for me, the repair thing. And I didn't agree. Rosemarie said, he's going to come to our repair meeting or whatever. I didn't agree to that. I said I'd come to the meeting.
Oh. Are you going to show up Wednesday?
I'm going to show up, but I'm not going to go through a repair. If we want to talk about this thing, that's fine.
And
Maybe everyone have some time to talk about what happened, what their feeling is, that kind of thing. That's fine.
I like that. I think that's good because I was considering, depending on what's left of my throat here, showing up. But I will be there, and yeah, let's just be adults. Let's just have some conversation. Shit. How many shades of gray are there? There's not just one.
Oh.
All right. Well, I was concerned.
So you'll have to take a look at this book. It's really, really fun. The MyBridge book.
Yeah.
And and also his photos. I didn't realize he was like a real photographer.
Yeah, I've seen some of his real work, not just his studies on motion.
Well, it's throughout the book. There
Cool.
there are examples of.
Wow. See, there's stuff I hadn't seen before.
And
Hold
it's a really fun book.
Hold up the front cover again.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Got it. Oh boy. Well, thanks. I was concerned for
Yeah.
you, of you, about you.
We got to keep doing those things that are nourishing for us, or our life's not forever.
Well, that's part of self-care, you know?
Do you get the New York Times? Online or anything?
I used to, but I stopped. But a
Oh.
friend of mine is telling me to sign up and do it again. It's gotten very interesting.
Well, the guy who invented the H-bomb, Garwin or something, died today
Oh, wow.
at 97. And it was a neat article about the H-bomb, but what I didn't realize is it said it's 600,000 times more powerful than the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
It's
And we were there.
unimaginable. I mean, it's the destruction of the Earth. And they wanted to do some tests in the upper atmosphere, but they would have had to cut out doing the moon shot
Oh,
because the radiation is and they asked this guy, how long will it take for the radiation to go away? He said, well, it's hard to tell, somewhere between 2 and 20 years.
wow.
Anyway, he consulted with 13 presidents. He figured this whole thing out when he was 24. He,
Wow. I
he was
guess
an
that's driven.
associate, worked under Teller.
Oh, yeah.
And then he worked the rest of his life for IBM and had 45 patents. So he was an absolute genius. And then he tried to also undo what he had done in the, coming up with this idea. But he said that someone else would have come up with it in 2 years or so, 1 or 2 years. They were
That
that
was the
close.
thing. Yeah, I remember reading that he was so concerned with the planet killer that he come up with and how could he undo it, but he never could. Wow.
Anyway,
I will go check that article out.
yeah, if you need me to send it to you, let me know.
Oh, would you do that? That'd make it a lot easier.
Oh, okay. I can make it a PDF.
Okay, great.
Okay, I will see you. Take care. I'm so sorry that that you're ill. I'm laughing because of what we just read,
I
and Buddha
know.
couldn't be ill, and
Well, this is just an example of my unenlightenment. And thanks. This was great reading today. This is so fun.
okay, well, good.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.